An email arrived late one evening from a company selling wellness products. They offered payment in exchange for endorsement of their newest formula, a concentrated powder derived from botanical extracts. The proposal seemed promising until a closer examination revealed the truth hidden in the fine print. The actual plant material comprised less than 1/5 of the total contents. Everything else was padding, artificial flavoring, and chemical preservatives designed to extend shelf life and maximize profits. The question became unavoidable. Why would anyone choose a watered-down imitation when the original source grows freely in nature? The modern health industry has perfected the art of repackaging what already exists in its most potent form. They take something pure, strip it down, add synthetic compounds, and sell it back at inflated prices. What reaches the consumer bears little resemblance to what the earth provided. The impact on the body reflects this dilution. The healing potential diminishes with every processing step, with every added ingredient that serves commerce rather than wellness. True potency lives in the unaltered form. The leaves themselves, fresh or gently dried, carry concentrations of active compounds that no laboratory extraction can fully replicate. These botanical allies have been used for generations, long before marketing departments turned them into products. Their effectiveness does not depend on branding or celebrity endorsements. It rests on biochemical interactions that science is only now beginning to document and understand. Consider the curry leaf, a staple in kitchens across South Asia, usually discarded after releasing its aroma into a dish. These small, unassuming greens contain alkaloids and antioxidants that fundamentally change how the body manages glucose. When insulin function improves, sugar molecules move from the bloodstream into cells where they belong. This prevents the lingering elevation that gradually destroys delicate tissues in the eyes, kidneys, and peripheral nerves. Researchers tracking diabetic individuals who consumed curry leaf extract over a month documented remarkable shifts. Fasting glucose measurements fell by 15 to 25%. Simultaneously, cholesterol profiles improved without any additional interventions. For those battling the stubborn accumulation of abdominal fat and unpredictable sugar fluctuations, such changes represent more than numbers on a laboratory report. They signal a fundamental restoration of metabolic balance. One woman in her late 60s from the southeastern United States began adding these leaves to her morning beverage after receiving troubling warnings about her glucose levels. She approached the practice with skepticism, expecting little from something so simple and accessible. Within weeks, her monitoring device showed readings that had eluded her for months. Her energy no longer collapsed by mid-afternoon. She described the sensation as though her body had finally remembered how to function properly. The mechanism involves gentle encouragement of pancreatic insulin release combined with enhanced cellular responsiveness to that hormone. Natural fiber content slows the breakdown of starches and sugars during digestion. Instead of flooding the bloodstream all at once, glucose enters gradually, steadily, preventing the dangerous spikes that trigger fat storage and vascular damage. This creates sustained energy rather than the exhausting cycle of surges and crashes. Using curry leaves requires no special preparation. They can be added to soups and stews, chewed directly for those who tolerate the bitter edge, or steeped in hot water for a medicinal tea. Though they represent the gentlest option among powerful botanical remedies, they demonstrate that even modest interventions from nature can begin reversing metabolic dysfunction and cholesterol imbalances. The mango tree offers more than sweet tropical fruit. Its leaves, often raked away and forgotten, contain bioactive molecules that rival pharmaceutical interventions. Compounds called mangiferin and quercetin alter glucose metabolism at the cellular level. For older adults, this translates to fewer post-meal spikes and reduced sugar exposure that might otherwise damage vital organs over time. A study examining ethnopharmacological traditions documented diabetic patients who consumed mango leaf preparations. Within a remarkably short period, fasting glucose dropped by 29%. Researchers also observed declining triglyceride levels, the fatty molecules that accumulate around internal organs and constrict arterial passages. This combined effect, simultaneously addressing sugar regulation and lipid metabolism, creates protection against the two leading causes of mortality in aging populations. A man in his early 70s from Texas learned this through personal necessity. Medical professionals warned that his borderline glucose and expanding waistline were pushing his cardiovascular system toward crisis. Rather than waiting for prescription medications, he turned to a practice his grandmother had maintained decades earlier in Mexico. Morning tea brewed from mango leaves became his daily ritual. 3 months later, his fasting measurements had improved and his abdomen had visibly reduced. He remarked that traditional wisdom had outperformed modern dietary trends. The leaves function through a dual pathway. They inhibit the absorption of sugar molecules in the intestinal tract, maintaining control over post-meal glucose elevations. Simultaneously, they enhance fat metabolism by preventing lipid accumulation in liver tissue. For older individuals, this means consistent energy availability, reduced pressure from visceral fat on vital structures, and diminished long-term risk of cardiovascular and renal complications. Bay leaves occupy a curious position in most kitchens. They appear in recipes, contribute subtle flavor, then get removed and discarded without much thought. Yet these unassuming aromatics contain compounds like cineol and eugenol alongside powerful antioxidants that regulate blood sugar and improve how cells respond to insulin. For those beyond their sixth decade, this means steadier energy distribution, less dangerous fat accumulation, and protection for blood vessels already strained by years of metabolic stress. Clinical investigations published in biochemistry journals tested diabetic individuals who consumed bay leaf powder daily for 30 days. Fasting glucose measurements fell by an average of 21%. LDL cholesterol, the variety that builds arterial plaque and triggers cardiovascular events, decreased by nearly 1/4. Such significant improvement from a common culinary herb reveals how profoundly underestimated these simple plants truly are. One elderly man from the Midwest used to joke that bay leaves served merely as decoration in his wife's cooking. When his blood sugar began its upward climb, his daughter suggested brewing them as tea, reviving an old family tradition. Within months of this evening practice, he noticed fewer episodes of dizziness after eating and even shed several pounds from his midsection. What he had dismissed as kitchen garnish became central to his defense against metabolic disease. Bay leaves work through two complementary mechanisms. Their polyphenol content slows the enzymatic conversion of complex starches into simple sugars, preventing the rapid glucose surges that follow meals. They also reduce oxidative stress, the cellular damage that weakens pancreatic function and diminishes insulin production capacity. For aging bodies, this means bay leaves address not only immediate blood sugar concerns but also preserve the organ responsible for long-term metabolic control. These leaves can be used fresh or dried in cooking, or simmered gently to create a mild infusion. They lack dramatic presentation but possess quiet, reliable power. Their effectiveness demonstrates that transformation does not require complexity or expense, only a willingness to recognize what nature has already provided. The neem tree has carried the title of miracle plant across Asian regions for centuries. Traditional practitioners turned to its leaves for conditions ranging from skin infections to fever, long before modern laboratories existed to explain why these remedies worked. Recent scientific investigation reveals that the most profound impact may involve blood sugar regulation and the reduction of dangerous abdominal fat deposits. Neem leaves contain flavonoids, triterpenoids, and glycosides that interact directly with glucose control mechanisms. For aging individuals, this represents a pathway toward lowering glucose concentrations while simultaneously reducing the strain that diabetes places on kidneys, cardiac tissue, and nerve fibers. Research published in physiology and pharmacology journals tracked diabetic patients receiving neem leaf extract. Within just 14 days, fasting blood sugar measurements declined by 18%. After 6 weeks, cholesterol profiles showed significant improvement as well. What proved most remarkable was that neem appeared to protect the pancreatic cells themselves, the insulin-producing structures that, once damaged, rarely regenerate. This protective quality holds particular importance for older adults. Once these specialized cells are lost, the body loses its capacity to produce adequate insulin naturally. Neem does not merely lower existing sugar levels. It shields the very machinery responsible for maintaining metabolic balance over the long term. One man in his 70s from Egypt grew up surrounded by neem trees but paid them little attention. After receiving his diagnosis, his brother reminded him of the bitter teas their grandmother prepared from these leaves. He began drinking the infusion twice weekly. Within months, his physician expressed surprise at how stable his measurements had become. He laughed while recounting that his grandmother understood the biochemistry long before medical schools taught it. Neem operates through multiple pathways simultaneously. It decelerates sugar absorption in the digestive tract, reduces the inflammatory processes that damage insulin receptors on cell surfaces, and assists the liver in its detoxification functions. The liver plays a central role in fat storage and metabolism, and when it functions more efficiently, the body stops accumulating the dangerous visceral fat that surrounds internal organs. For those struggling with stubborn weight concentrated around the midsection, neem helps redirect metabolic processes away from storage and toward utilization. The leaves can be steeped in hot water to create an admittedly bitter but effective tea, or dried and ground into powder form for capsules. The taste challenges most palates, but the biochemical benefits justify the temporary discomfort. Neem leaves may not offer pleasant flavor, but they stand among the most formidable natural allies against metabolic dysfunction and cholesterol elevation. The banaba tree grows throughout Southeast Asian regions, its leaves used for generations as a remedy for elevated blood sugar. Modern science has finally begun validating what traditional knowledge maintained for centuries. Banaba leaves contain corosolic acid, a compound that researchers sometimes refer to as plant insulin because of how it facilitates glucose entry into cells. For older individuals, this means less sugar circulating freely in the bloodstream, fewer episodes of energy depletion, and reduced risk of the long-term complications that include kidney deterioration and peripheral nerve damage. A study examining medicinal foods documented individuals who took banaba leaf extract and observed their blood sugar decline by an average of 30% within merely 2 weeks. That magnitude of change rivals the effect produced by certain prescription medications. Researchers simultaneously noted improvements in lipid profiles, including reductions in LDL cholesterol and triglycerides, the dangerous fats that contribute to abdominal weight and arterial obstruction. One woman approaching 70 from the Philippines grew up near banaba trees but considered them ordinary landscape features. When her glucose levels began climbing during her 7th decade, her niece suggested trying banaba preparations. Within several months, she no longer experienced dizziness after meals, and her physician remarked on her improved cholesterol measurements. What had been simply part of her neighborhood scenery became an essential component of her daily health maintenance. The power of banaba extends beyond glucose regulation. Its antioxidants reduce oxidative stress, protecting the delicate endothelial lining of blood vessels. This protection becomes critical for aging individuals because elevated sugar and cholesterol together create scarring throughout the arterial system, dramatically increasing the risk of heart attack and stroke. By calming inflammatory processes and lowering lipid accumulation, banaba leaves help restore healthy circulation and ease the burden on cardiac tissue. Banaba can be prepared as tea, taken in capsule form, or used as concentrated extracts. Its mild, earthy flavor makes it simple to incorporate into daily routines without significant adjustment. For older adults seeking natural metabolic support, banaba leaves demonstrate some of the most rapid and dramatic effects documented in clinical research. The moringa tree grows across Asia and Africa, sometimes called the drumstick tree for its long seed pods. Its leaves deserve recognition by another name entirely, the diabetes destroyer. These vivid green leaves pack dense concentrations of vitamins, minerals, and specialized plant compounds called isothiocyanates that directly target blood sugar regulation. For those beyond 60 years, moringa does not merely lower glucose levels. It interrupts the destructive cycle of inflammation, elevated cholesterol, and visceral fat accumulation that makes diabetes so devastating. Research published in food science journals found that women who added just 7 grams of moringa leaf powder to their daily intake experienced a fasting blood sugar reduction of 13.5% within 6 weeks. Another clinical investigation showed that moringa not only reduced sugar but also improved cholesterol profiles, lowering LDL while boosting HDL, the beneficial cholesterol that protects cardiovascular structures. One man in his early 70s from Kenya grew up with moringa trees throughout his village but never considered them medicinal. When his blood sugar began its concerning ascent, his son encouraged him to return to traditional practices. He started drinking moringa leaf tea each morning. Within months, he noticed his abdomen shrinking, his energy improving, and his physician reporting that his glucose levels had finally achieved control. Moringa succeeds through a multi-target approach. It slows the release of sugar from digested food, improves cellular responsiveness to insulin, and reduces the inflammatory processes that obstruct blood flow. Simultaneously, its high calcium and potassium content support bone density and healthy blood pressure regulation, both desperately needed in aging bodies. Unlike remedies that address only one aspect of metabolic dysfunction, moringa attacks the problem from multiple angles simultaneously, addressing sugar regulation, cholesterol balance, and fat storage patterns. The leaves can be consumed fresh in salads, dried for tea preparation, or ground into powder and sprinkled over meals. They carry a slightly earthy taste that most people tolerate easily. The benefits far outweigh any minor flavor considerations. For older individuals wrestling with unstable glucose and stubborn abdominal fat, moringa represents a comprehensive botanical intervention that addresses the interconnected nature of metabolic disease rather than treating isolated symptoms. These leaves demonstrate that nature provides not singular solutions but complete systems of support. Each one works differently, yet all address the fundamental imbalances that create disease in aging bodies. The plants themselves have no commercial interest, no marketing budget, no profit motive. They simply exist, carrying within their cellular structure the compounds that can restore what modern living has disrupted. The insulin plant, known scientifically as Costus igneus, carries its purpose in its very name. Native to Indian regions, these bright green leaves contain bioactive compounds that mimic the action of insulin itself. For older individuals, this means glucose molecules in the bloodstream can finally move into cells where they serve their proper function rather than accumulating and causing damage to organs throughout the body. A clinical trial published in diagnostic research journals tested diabetic patients who consumed one insulin plant leaf daily for 60 days. The results defied what many would expect from such a simple intervention. Fasting blood sugar dropped by nearly 50%. Post-meal glucose levels fell dramatically as well. Researchers additionally noted improvements in cholesterol measurements, with LDL decreasing while HDL, the protective variety, rose. That magnitude of transformation demands attention from anyone facing metabolic dysfunction. One man in his 70s from Bangalore learned about the insulin plant from a neighbor who cultivated it in her garden. Approaching the suggestion with skepticism, he began chewing one leaf each morning. Within several months, his glucose readings stabilized so effectively that his physician reduced his medication dosage. He described the experience as discovering medicine growing just outside his door, freely available and requiring no prescription or pharmacy visit. The secret lies in compounds like corosolic acid and various flavonoids that enhance glucose uptake by cells while slowing sugar absorption in the digestive tract. For aging bodies, this means fewer dangerous spikes after eating, reduced abdominal fat accumulation, and diminished risk of long-term damage to kidneys, eyes, and nerve tissue. Unlike interventions that provide temporary relief, insulin plant leaves work gently but consistently, retraining the metabolic system to manage sugar more effectively over time. The leaves can be chewed raw despite their bitter taste, brewed into tea, or taken as powdered supplements for those who prefer capsules. The flavor challenges most people initially, but the biochemical payoff justifies the brief discomfort. For older individuals struggling with uncontrolled glucose and cholesterol, insulin plant leaves can produce transformation that changes daily life and long-term health trajectories. Yet even with such dramatic potential, one leaf surpasses all others in documented effectiveness and accessibility. Guava leaves grow on trees that many people walk past regularly without recognizing their extraordinary power. While the fruit enjoys widespread popularity, the leaves contain compounds that simultaneously attack diabetes, cholesterol elevation, and visceral fat accumulation. Rich in quercetin, tannins, and flavonoids, guava leaves slow sugar absorption in the gut, improve insulin sensitivity, and protect blood vessels from the damage that high glucose inflicts. For aging individuals, this translates to steadier blood sugar throughout the day, reduced fat storage around the abdomen, and stronger, more resilient circulation. Research published in nutrition and metabolism journals found that drinking guava leaf tea with meals reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by up to 27% in diabetic patients. Another investigation reported improvements in total cholesterol and triglycerides, with reductions as high as 23%. Those numbers approach the effectiveness of certain prescription medications, yet guava leaves grow freely in nature, often overlooked and underutilized. One woman in her early 70s from Florida began brewing guava leaf tea after her granddaughter suggested trying it. Within weeks, her afternoon energy crashes ceased entirely. Over time, her physician noted better cholesterol readings, and she lost inches from her waistline without changing her diet or exercise patterns significantly. She described feeling as though she had discovered a secret weapon hiding in her own backyard, accessible and powerful. The effectiveness of guava leaves stems from their multi-pathway approach. They block specific enzymes that convert complex carbohydrates into simple sugars, preventing the dangerous spikes that damage tissues throughout the body. They reduce oxidative stress, which protects both pancreatic function and arterial integrity. They assist the liver in metabolizing fat more efficiently, shrinking the visceral deposits that compress organs and drive inflammatory processes. For older adults, this triple action provides protection not merely from diabetes itself but also from the heart disease and kidney failure that so frequently follow metabolic dysfunction. Guava leaves can be dried and brewed into tea or taken as extracts in capsules. The flavor remains mild and earthy, easy to consume daily without significant adjustment. More importantly, the benefits extend far beyond what their simplicity might suggest. Guava leaves represent not just another natural remedy but perhaps the strongest botanical defense against metabolic disease that nature provides. These 8 leaves, from the gentle encouragement of curry leaves to the powerful intervention of guava leaves, demonstrate that nature has been offering solutions long before pharmaceutical companies existed. Older adults face particular vulnerability to the interconnected threats of elevated sugar, cholesterol imbalance, and dangerous fat accumulation. Yet these botanical allies show that pathways toward restoration exist outside the prescription model, accessible to those willing to look beyond commercial wellness products. The choice becomes clear. Each decision either feeds disease or fights against it. These leaves exist freely, their effectiveness documented in scientific literature, their use validated by generations of traditional knowledge. They require no special equipment, no expensive supplements with questionable concentrations, no dependency on medical systems that often treat symptoms rather than addressing root causes. The question is not whether these leaves work. The research confirms their effectiveness repeatedly across different populations and study designs. The question is whether individuals will act on this information, whether they will choose the pure source over the diluted extract, whether they will trust what the earth provides over what marketing departments promise. These botanical remedies do not replace medical care when serious intervention becomes necessary. They represent another tool, one that many people can access regardless of their economic situation or geographic location. They offer agency in a healthcare landscape that often leaves individuals feeling powerless and dependent. The leaves are here. The science supporting them continues to accumulate. The next move belongs to those who recognize that healing often grows in the most overlooked places, waiting simply to be noticed and used.